Hi, everybody, and welcome to Headway, a show that informs our audience about political issues that affect the nation, the region, and our local area. On this episode, I'll be speaking with Anusha Ali and Suzette Cook from D.A.R.E, Direct Action for Rights and Equality. We're going to discuss D.A.R.E's Behind the Walls, which is D.A.R.E's Prison Reform Committee. Hi, everybody, and welcome to Headway. Today, we're going to be talking with Anusha Alice and Suzette Cook from D.A.R.E's Behind the Walls Coalition. How you doing, guys?
Good. Thanks for having us.
Oh, yeah, no problem. So can one of you talk about just like a background of D.A.R.E and a little bit of a background of Behind the Walls?
Hi, so again, I'm Suzette Cook, and with we are D.A.R.E, which is Direct Action for Rights and Equality, and not to be mistaken with the War on Drugs program. We have two decades of this committee. We fight for voting rights for the people with records. We've done Ban the Box, along with access to public housing for people with records. We are a member-based organization. Everything is led directly by impacted members, campaigns, and decisions for the organization. We have leadership development, building organizing skills of directly impacted people. Along with we also have the Fair Chance Licensing Act, and what the bill says, outreach to employers, training programs, and directly impacted people. So if there's anyone that wants to support in this application process, please come to D.A.R.E.
All right. Can you tell me a little more about the Fair Chance Licensing Bill?
Yeah, so this is a campaign that we worked on for the last few years. So this has been our focus in the last couple of years. But basically, this is part of like a national movement to pass occupational licensing reform. So a lot of jobs require a license from the state to practice. So for people with records, there's barriers on two levels. There's a barrier with getting the license from the state agency, and then there's also a barrier in terms of getting employment, because there's discrimination by employers too. So Ban the Box, which we passed in the past, that was trying to tackle employer discrimination. This was focused on the state and the agencies. So we actually did get this bill passed. It was a victory for us. It passed, I think, about a month ago. And what the bill says is that the agencies can no longer deny you unless they can establish that your record actually has some sort of impact on your ability to do the job. So it has to be substantially related to the job in question. Because before, agencies could deny people based on anything. It could be even an arrest record, because there were actually laws that said they could evaluate your moral character based on your record. So if you had like a bunch of arrests that didn't actually lead to convictions, even that could be grounds for denial. So that's no longer allowed. You can't deny somebody based on an arrest that didn't lead to conviction. You can't deny people based on expunged records, which that was allowed before too. And if you are going to deny somebody based on a record, you have to actually say this is how their conviction is related to the occupation. There also has to be like more transparency around that. They can notify people. They have to let people know this is the part of your record that we're looking at, that this is why we're denying you. They have to let people know how to appeal. Everybody has to be able to appeal. And a really big part of the bill too is that we're asking agencies to collect demographic data. So they have to publish demographic data every year about how many people they're denying based on records, and the breakdown by race and I believe also part of the state that you're from. So that bill goes into effect in January. I'm just trying to plug it right now so that folks who have records, if you've been denied in the past, or if you haven't applied for a license because you thought you would be denied, now there is more of a chance that you'll be able to get that license, because there's some level of accountability that the agencies are being held to. And if you're interested in applying and want some support around that, you can come to D.A.R.E, and we will support you through that process and help you in that application process.
So what professional licenses was this? Like any license that people need for certain jobs, or was it specific ones?
It was the majority. So there's I think it was almost 70% of occupational licenses in Rhode Island. So there were 90 total that had barriers related convictions, and they were all kinds of things, ranged from doctor, lawyer, nurse, things like plumber, barber. One was like a fire sprinkler fitter. They were all different kinds of jobs. There were certain kinds of driving jobs, cosmetics industry jobs. It was a range. It's a range of jobs that have barriers around convictions that had them.
Yeah. So you were telling me before we started the show that there's some demands things you're working on with involving the ACI. Do you want to talk about that?
Yes. So what we have here is to the Incarcerate Now coalition. And to begin, that would be to stop torture in Rhode Island prisons. We're looking to end excessive lockdown, which is requiring them to be locked down for 23 out of 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They're lucky if, in the event that they get out, in terms of recreation time, 15 minutes. And that would also include the showering as well. We'd like to be able to restore visitation. Needs to make. We're looking to basically make video visitation accessible. It's just unfortunate that a lot of families are unable to afford to be able to do so. We're looking for universal testing and transparency around that data, and what that is, we don't know really what's going on. The DOH is releasing data for every population except for the prison population. So what's that plan? What's the plan for restoring programming completely is really what we're looking for. We'd like to also end arrest and incarceration as well. Anusha, would you like to elaborate on that?
Thanks, Suzette. So also, these are demands that we're working on with a lot of other organizations. So we formed a coalition in March when the COVID shutdowns were happening, and it was a lot of different people who were already working on different aspects around the criminal justice system or criminal injustice system. And so COVID was sort of like the point that brought us all together and made these demands more urgent. But these are all long-term demands that we are moving toward, that we're pushing to move towards the abolition of prisons and police. So that applies to this demand to around ending arrests and incarceration. So that's like particularly urgent right now because prisons are a place where disease just spreads like wildfire, like because of the way that prisons are built, and because there's people in close quarters and people can't actually socially distance, like people haven't been given access to masks. Like now finally that people are given masks, but it took the prison a long time, like I think at least a month to give people masks. People didn't have hand sanitizer, people didn't have basic things that they needed, like the CDC recommendations that are out here, people are not able to do that in prison. And like Suzette said, we haven't had any data, we haven't had any transparency on what's happening. So people's loved ones are behind bars and we don't really know what's going on. And because they are also cut off from phones, they're getting limited time on the phone, they're getting limited access to visitation. A lot of people haven't been able to have a visit because they're not doing in-person visit anymore. They're only doing video visitation now, and people have to pay for that, so people can't always do that. So because of that, this population of people is especially vulnerable right now with COVID. So that's why we're calling for as many people to be released as possible, and for there to be a halt to arrests too, because at this point, what we're hearing is that arrests have basically gone back to normal. So the police are just arresting people and putting people in jail for petty nonviolent offenses. There's no reason to lock people up and put their lives at risk in that way, and put the people who are inside jails in at risk in that way by continually cycling people in and out. So that's one thing we're asking for, where we have been pushing a demand via the budget, because the governor's budget for next year has has introduced this idea of geriatric parole. So basically, releasing medically vulnerable people is already something that's possible, and she's expanding that to include folks who are elderly. And we're pushing for her to lower that age. So she's defined geriatric parole as for people who are 65 years old, and she also has a couple other stipulations. Let's see. That they have to have served the lesser of 10 years or 75% of their sentence in order to be considered for geriatric parole. So what we're pushing for is for that age to be reduced to 50, and we're saying that everybody over the age of 50 should be eligible for geriatric parole. And the reason why we are pushing for the age 50 is because people actually age at a different rate in prison because of the stress. And there are studies that have shown that because of all the sort of physical, emotional, the trauma behind bars, people actually age faster. People experience health issues at a younger age. So that's one thing we're pushing for. And then a sort of long-term thing that we've been looking into is reform around probation, because the probation laws in Rhode Island are awful. And I can say more. I've been talking for a while, so I don't know. Do you want me to talk about that more?
Yeah, you can tell me a little. Yeah, talk about the probation reform. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, the way it works in Rhode Island is that, first of all, people in Rhode Island on average get longer probation sentences than the rest of the country. So the average here is almost 5 years that people are on probation. And when you are on probation, you can get violated for. There's basically no real standard of evidence for being violated. And if you are violated, you're sent to jail. And basically the standard is that you're disturbing the peace. If you're considered to be disturbing the peace, which is a really broad, that could be anything. You just have to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. And you automatically get violated, and they send you to jail, and you remain violated until your charge gets dropped. But the problem with that is that people can't afford to sit in jail and they can't afford to. A lot of times people take plea deals because they can't afford to go and contest a charge. So people get pressured into plea deals, and then that violation also holds. So people basically aren't getting like any sort of due process. Like they're being coerced into taking these plea deals, and they're automatically being violated. So it's very scary. Like if you're on probation, you're kind of like you're in a precarious state all the time.
We were talking about them not being able to afford, in terms of like the probation and the parole. To me, it's systematically designed to kind of like be that way for me, but it's like a big business. And so you put someone on probation, they come out, you haven't rehabilitated them, so you're bringing them back into the same society that's designed to put them back in there. So that cycle just constantly keeps going back and forth. They come out, they can't get a job. That's where the Fair Chance Licensing Act comes in, because you can possibly get a trade, but then you can't get a certification in that. So you find yourself back out into the same area and then back to jail again. And then when I was looking at the numbers that went along with that, we had, what did I find here? That I think it's $186 a day to incarcerate an inmate, right? To have someone in the prison system. Now you're sending them back to jail because they can't either, they like she said, you're caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. You're on a probation, so then you're incarcerated. Then you get the violation time. So then that violation time that you're put in there is more than what they probably could have locked you up for, maybe because you forgot a court payment. So again, it keeps going back and forth.
So when people are released, and or parolees are released in prison, and is there something that D.A.R.E wants to see happening with for opportunities for parolees that's not happening now?
I would like for them to be able to actually come out of there with a trade of some sort. Not just your average GED. Some of the inmates that are in there are not even eligible for those particular type of programs. But in the event it would be programs that could help them to be able to come out and sustain themselves. Whether they're, because they're all in there for so many various different reasons. So I could even touch on like someone that's in there for child support. He hadn't been able to pay it. Well, if you give him an opportunity to be able to have a trade that can not only help him to pay for his child support, his court fines. I did basically just answer your question, because I'm sorry, I'm on a long road with this type of work. I would just like to say, to be able to help them sustain themselves. So that would require any type of work or trade that could help them when they come out.
So Anusha had mentioned that to me before the show that you're going to be having a voter registration drive at D.A.R.E. Can you give me any more information on that?
Yes. So if you've been previously incarcerated and have not been able to register to vote, we are having a drive over there today, and whereas you can get a gift card just for registering to vote. That, along with having the census drive as well. And that would be for those that have been previously incarcerated.
So what the census part of it, why is it important for previously incarcerated people to fill out that census?
It not only is it just for previously, but it's a lot of where the funding goes from our government into our communities that are heavily impacted by the lack thereof in terms of programs, in terms of funding for a lot of things, various different things that we need in our community. So it's not about them just keeping account of our name and where we live, but it's about the funding and where we're going in our community.
So Suzette, you're looking to shut down high security prisons at the ACI. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, that is correct. So again, we're looking to, the demand is coming from the inside as well. I have some notation here that we as of Thursday, the 3rd, there were 89 people in high security. And as of 2019, it cost us $195,244 to house someone per year. Most of the ACI budget goes towards the governor's fiscal for 2021. Her budget proposed $267 million in spending on Rhode Island's Department of Corrections, in which $200 million would have gone to salary and benefits alone.
What about high security prison? What about it makes D.A.R.E. want to have that closed down?
Well, not only that, it's the living conditions that they have that are inside of there. A lot of them are locked down, again, along with the remaining of the whole prison complex, but they're all locked down a little over 23 hours. The living conditions in there alone are just unsafe. This is not a place in which that anyone would want to even put their animal in, nevertheless an inmate. It's costing, us a significant amount of money when, if there's only in that entire facility, you're only having, if I'm not mistaken, I did say 89 people that are there in a facility that would have housed well over 300. There's no need for that building to continue to be open.
You mentioned with that these are demands that are coming from the inside. Can you talk a little bit about how behind the walls, you guys who are working behind the walls outside are communicating with people who are incarcerated right now? Like, how does that happen, and how do you guys communicate? How much input do they have into the demands that you guys make as an organization?
Well, they really don't have. We are their eyes and their ears. We get their stories via phone call or they write us letters. As you know, we can't go in and visit and see the conditions for ourselves. but they are the ones that are allowing us to know that they're living in inhabitable situations. So along with the families that are affected by this as well.
Through letters and phone calls, you're hearing about conditions in there, and then Behind the Walls discusses like how some of that thing, so those problems can be remedied, right? Yeah.
So yes, exactly.
Okay.
So we've intended to do is to come up with a devised plan where we can speak not only with the director of I'm sorry because I'm not the director Coy, Koning Fag, and Dr. Clark, in which that we're reaching out to try to get some of these demands in which that we have met, that which would be I would be able to help the inmates that are in there.
So Suzette, Behind the Walls wants to end solitary confinement at the ACI, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Can you tell me a little more about that, about why and how what you'd want to do with that?
Okay, so all of this is kind of combined together in terms of shutting down the high security altogether. Coming in again, like we had stated before, that was a lot of that is coming from the inside, along with a lot of the organizations that's working together. The ending of the torture for solitary confinement, in which that they are in these horrible conditions 23 hours a day. So that would allow them to be able to also, a lot of these inmates are suffering from a lot of mental health issues, these are things in which that are not addressed. So we're looking to try to get some programs that are in there that can not only help them with their mental health issues, but at least allow them to feel a sense of freedom within the walls of confinement, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know if it does, but for them, I'm trying to give it to you in a way in which that is given to us. They're basically primarily just losing their minds, and so we're trying to get programs in there that can help them.
So Anusha, you were talking earlier about that an ultimate goal is to abolish prisons. Do you want to talk about what that would look like? Like, how would that happen? How do you end the prison system in Rhode Island, or in general? How do you end the incarceration of people? Like, how do we end this in America or in Rhode Island?
That's a huge question. I can't answer that on my own. But I think it's a thing that many people are thinking about and working on right now. But I think for us, I guess I'll just refer back to like this particular campaign, right? Like there are particular things that we're pushing for right now, with the long-term goal of continuing to reduce the numbers of people who are being cycled in and out of this system that destroys people's lives, that destroys communities, and with the long-term goal of shifting those funds, like Suzette was talking about the high security campaign, and the idea is to create these savings. If we weren't spending so much money on incarcerating people and torturing people, we could actually be putting that money into programs that allow people to get the sort of support, the resources that they need. Like so much of the reason why crime happens is because people have been harmed, people don't have access to resources that they need, people don't have money, people don't have housing. So abolition is, it's not just about ending the prisons and getting rid of the prisons, it's about actually investing in communities and building strong communities that have the things that they need. So that's a very long-term project. It's a thing that involves a lot of different shifts, not just at the ACI, but it's shifts across our whole society. It's also interpersonal shifts in the way that we talk about and think about conflict and how we address harm in our communities, how we take care of each other. So like I said, it's not something where I can give a full answer by myself. But I think the things that we're pushing for right now around trying to get as many people released as possible, trying to reduce the numbers of people being funneled back and back and back into the system. Those are steps towards that goal.
Yeah. So can you just talk about how, so when you're trying to get politicians to buy in to the goals you're trying to achieve for certain legislation, like how do you get politicians to get on your side, to introduce legislation, to sign on to legislation, and to just want to even be part of reform?
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple of politicians out there who actually care about these things. We have sponsors who supported fair chance licensing, who I think genuinely believe in the work that we do. That's Senator Metz and Scott Slater, who have championed our work for a long time. But I would say the majority of politicians are just in it for themselves, or looking to get reelected. And so it's about selling it to them. Like, how does this benefit you? And I would argue that, abolition benefits everybody because it's creating a healthier kind of society. Like, I think everybody is impacted in some way by the kind of violent world that we live in. But, when it comes to talking to politicians, we often focus on numbers, the economics of it. So for high side, shut down high side. The obvious reason to shut down high side is what Suzette was saying, that people are being tortured, people are in solitary confinement. But that's not how we sell it to politicians. We sell it as, these are the budgetary savings. Like, you have a whole facility open for, I believe Suzette said it was 89 people right now. You're running an entire building, you're spending all this money. You could save that money, and that could actually go towards other things that voters are asking for. So it's kind of about, selling it to them on their terms, trying to make it something that is legible to them if they're thinking in terms of money. Yeah, I think, and also, often we use different language in different places. The way we talk about things is different from place to place. So I think often, I think the language of abolition, nobody really wants to hear that. When it comes to legislation, people don't, we're in a different place. So it's about sort of pitching the sort of a very concrete demand, being this is how you get it done. This is what it would look like, making it very, very tangible for them.
So if, can you guys just tell me if people want to be involved with D.A.R.E and just want to, be involved in some direct action or volunteer with you guys, how do people get in contact with D.A.R.E?
You can email me if you want directly, Anusha, A-N as in Nancy, U-S-H-A @daretowin.org. We also have a Facebook page that you can follow. We have a Facebook page and a group, Direct Action for Rights and Equality. So you can follow us on there to updates on actions that are coming up, things that we are asking people to show up for. You can donate. Our website's a little out of date, so you can check out our website if you want to read more about our mission, vision, and values, but it's not super up to date on our current campaigns. But yeah, I think if somebody who identifies as directly impacted, so for us, we define that as you have a record, somebody you love has been impacted by incarceration, or your community has been heavily impacted by incarceration. So if you identify in those ways, we welcome you to come to the Behind the Walls meetings, which are every Wednesday night, 6 to 8. The location right now kind of varies because we've been doing outdoor meetings because of COVID. So the best way to plug into that would be to email me. You could also call D.A.R.E, which, let me just grab the phone number real fast. Let's see. It is 401-351-6960. We're not in the office all the time right now because of COVID, but if you call in the morning, usually somebody will be here to pick up the phone. So 401-351-6960. So just call us and let us know, how you're interested in plugging in, and if, there's a place for everybody in the work, whether you consider yourself directly impacted or not.
All right, great. Well, thank you, Suzette, and thank you, Anusha, for talking to us. It's been really informative, and I'm sure our audience will learn a lot from this. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Sorry for all the technical issues.
No, it's okay. And thank you, everyone, for watching Headway, and stay tuned for another episode soon.